In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NHL games happening on February 1st, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Los Angeles Kings versus Carolina Hurricanes. Raleigh gets a loud Sunday showcase, a matinee that feels a lot like a sneak peek of playoff hockey. Both teams skating on the back half of a back-to-back, both fresh off overtime, both probably feeling like they left something on the table the night before. The visitors just pulled out an overtime win in Philadelphia, which smooths over that rough stretch where their season looked like it might wobble again. But it also means extra minutes for key skaters and a late emotional high that can be hard to match the next afternoon. The home side had the opposite experience, racing out to a 3-goal lead in Washington, then watching it evaporate in a 4-3 overtime loss that stung, but still quietly pushed their point streak to 7 straight games at 5-0-2. The bigger picture tilts the ice toward the home bench. They sit at 33-15-6, top of their division, and their building has turned into a genuine headache, with a home mark of 19-8-2 that is not just noise, it is a pattern. The visitors sit at 23-17-13, which sounds fine on paper, and they actually travel pretty well with a 14-7-4 road record, but the overall profile is more scrappy survivor than steamroller. One side has built an identity around rolling 4 lines, pushing pace, and trusting that pressure over 60 minutes eventually cracks whoever is in front of them. The other side leans more on structure, patience, and hoping the game stays in that uncomfortable 1-goal zone where a bounce or a broken play can flip everything. The style matchup leans into that story. The home team lives near the top of the league in goals scored per game and throws pucks on net at a top-tier rate, which is the hockey version of constantly refreshing the scoreboard and daring the other side to keep up. Even with all that aggression, they still sit inside the top group in fewest goals allowed, which tells you the engine is not just loud, it is tuned. The visitors are almost a photo negative. They are stuck near the bottom group in scoring, often struggling to finish chances, yet they shine on the defensive side with numbers that put them among the better teams at keeping the puck out. That kind of team can absolutely hang around, but covering against a strong favorite on the road usually asks for either an unusually sharp finishing night or a full 60 minutes where their preferred low-event script holds up under fire. The schedule spot adds another wrinkle. Both clubs played overtime the night before, both had to handle the emotional swing of sudden death, and both had to reset quickly. The difference is one group woke up at home, in their own routines, with their own crowd waiting, while the other climbed off a plane and into another tough rink. Coaches in these spots often shorten the bench, lean on their most trusted pieces, and accept a bit more chaos, which tends to favor the deeper, more offensively confident roster, especially when it controls last change and can hunt matchups. Recent history between these two sides quietly supports the same direction. The home logo has dominated this matchup for a while, stacking up a double-digit edge in the last 15 meetings and running 6-1 in this building. That does not guarantee anything, but it does hint that the way these rosters and systems clash has repeatedly tilted toward one result, especially when the storm warning signs are hanging all over the arena. So when you combine current form, home strength, stylistic edge, and the scheduling spot, the more likely scenario is not just a narrow escape, it is a result that reflects the gap between how these two teams are playing right now. As our first pick for this matchup, the Carolina Hurricanes money line is our full game side pick. On one side, there is a home team that scores in waves and keeps throwing pucks from everywhere, and on the other, a visiting team that would much rather keep things tight, slow, and quiet. The raw matchup history between these two does not really sit on the fence, though. Their recent meetings have leaned heavily toward games with more scoring, and in this building especially, the pattern has been clear, with most of those contests landing in that lively, multi-goal territory that makes highlight shows fun to watch. The visitors have been a magnet for lower-scoring games lately, and that is worth mentioning. A lot of their recent schedule has leaned under, especially away from home, and a big part of that comes from how they prefer to play: careful, layered, and very willing to dump the puck out and live to fight another shift. That template can work when the opponent is happy to trade long stretches of nothingness and wait for a mistake. The problem here is that the home team is wired almost the opposite way. The home side is not subtle about how they attack. They rank near the top of the league in goals and sit near the top in shots, and their whole philosophy is basically throw enough rubber at the net and something will break. They just played a 4-3 overtime game where they exploded early, then leaked chances the other way, which is exactly the kind of emotional roller coaster that hints at how their games can open up, especially when legs are a little heavy. That kind of identity tends to drag even cautious opponents into a faster rhythm. Shifts get shorter, passes get bolder, and suddenly a game that looked like a coin flip on paper turns into a race. Fatigue feeds into that picture. Both teams come in off overtime, so you are looking at skaters who already logged extra minutes and goalies who had to handle extra stress. When that happens, structure is usually the first thing to slip, especially late in periods when changes get a touch slower. Coaches in this spot often lean harder on their stars, which can raise the talent level on the ice but also leave more tired legs facing top skill, and that combination usually leads to chances both ways. The history between these clubs in this arena, the aggressive identity of the home offense, the recent tendency for their games to turn wild when momentum swings, and the layered fatigue from back-to-back overtime spots all point in the same direction. It is simply more realistic to picture a scoreboard that gets a decent workout than one that stays almost untouched for 60 minutes. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Bruins versus Tampa Bay Lightning. This matchup is not just another game on the schedule, it is a full outdoor spectacle at Raymond James Stadium with hockey jammed into a football cathedral and a massive crowd watching every shift. Both teams roll in with seasons that actually matter in the standings, right in the mix in the Atlantic, so the whole thing carries that playoff-flavored tension where every mistake feels twice as loud. You can almost hear it already, the buzz during warm-ups, the buzz in the tunnel, because this kind of stage does not let anyone float through a shift without being noticed. On one sideline, you have the battle-tested group from Tampa Bay Lightning that leans on structure and a very calm approach to big nights, and on the other you have a Boston squad from Boston Bruins that still brings that hard-edged identity but has been more in chasing mode than pace-setting mode lately. The building itself tilts things a little, even if the ice is sitting in the middle of an NFL stadium instead of a traditional rink. Everything around this event is wired for the home side, from the local fan fest to the familiar drive to the stadium to the comfort of your own routines, while Boston has to treat the whole thing like a long, noisy business trip. That constant wall of noise, the sea of home colors, the fireworks and music and sideshows, all of it quietly chips away at the visiting bench over 60 minutes, not with one huge moment, but with a series of little swings that show up in puck races and board battles. Honestly, that is where spreads often get settled in games like this, not on the highlight you see again on ESPN, but on the third or fourth small edge that builds up over the night. When you look at how the season has unfolded, Tampa has earned the sort of respect where bookmakers treat them as the side you pay a premium to back, which usually only happens when a team has rewarded that trust more often than not. Boston is always live and absolutely capable of crashing a party, but their path to staying inside the number feels tighter because it usually asks them to stack nearly perfect shifts against a group that has lived in these pressure pockets for years. Here is the thing, when you combine the comfort in the building, the big game experience, and a two-way style that tends to hold up even when conditions are strange, the home locker room simply feels a little more reliable if the question is who is more likely to finish on the right side of the spread. As our first pick for this matchup, the Tampa Bay Lightning money line is our full game side pick. Thinking about the scoreboard, this kind of outdoor showcase almost tricks people into picturing a crazy, fire wagon night with goals flying in from everywhere because the stage looks like a festival, and festivals feel like they should be loud and wild. The reality can be a lot more stubborn, especially when you take two well-drilled systems, put them on national TV, and tell both coaches that this is a serious measuring stick, not just a photo shoot with face-off sprinkled on top. Neither bench actually wants a free-for-all. They want discipline, they want their structure to show up, and that mindset does as much to shape scoring as any star shot from the circle. The conditions themselves want to say too, with the ice getting a lot of attention after the protective tent came off early and the weather in Tampa deciding to show off a colder, sharper feel than anyone expected for a Florida showcase. Outdoor ice loves to collect tiny imperfections, and those little bumps and grooves make the cute east-west stuff harder to pull off cleanly, so teams naturally shift into safer patterns, chip it in, change, and live to fight the next shift. That kind of night usually means more straight-line plays, more battles in the corners, and fewer of those clean, tape-to-tape rushes that turn into instant chances. The talent on both sides is good enough to finish when a look appears, but the volume of clean looks is what really drives a total, and this setup does not exactly scream wide open. Special teams can always yank a game off script. A couple of quick calls can tilt everything, but in events with this sort of buildup, you often see stretches where the whistles stay quiet and 5-on-5 grind becomes the main story. If this leans into the tight, playoff-style rhythm that both coaching staffs have been talking about all week, with every line change treated like a small chess move, the final number on the board feels more likely to land on the modest side than to blow up into a track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Vegas Golden Knights versus Anaheim Ducks. Vegas rolling into Anaheim feels like one of those classic NHL mood swings where the standings and the vibes are having two very different conversations. On one side, there is a first-place group that has stumbled through 4 straight losses and 6 in its last 7, including a tight 3-2 result the night before against Seattle, which never sits well in a contender's locker room. On the other side, there is an Anaheim team that has played its way firmly into the playoff picture with a long, hot stretch, even though the overall goal numbers tell a more modest story, with Vegas still sitting on the healthier season goal differential at 179 goals scored and 172 allowed, while Anaheim has been living closer to break even with a record around 28 to 23-3 and a negative differential. The funny part is how public perception tends to lag behind reality just a little. Vegas still carries the aura of the heavyweight, the group that expects to be in the conversation come spring, and the market still treats them like the more trusted side even while the losses stack up for a week. Anaheim feels fresher, younger, more chaotic, with that recent win streak powered not so much by methodical control, but by timely goals, extra time drama, and stretches where they were outshot yet still walked away singing. Anyone who has watched a team ride a heater like that knows it is exciting, but it is also the kind of run that can cool quickly once a few bounces flip the other way. On paper, the roster comparison still leans toward the visitors. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, Pavel Dorofeyev, and Mitch Marner give them a top group that can tilt shifts, hold the puck, and wear down defenders when they play to their identity. It is not perfect, and it is not fully healthy, with Brett Howden and Colton Sissons ruled out, and William Karlsson, Brandon Saad, Braden McNabb, Carter Hart, and Cole Reinhardt also sitting on the unavailable list, which cuts into the usual spine and safety net. Even with that, the framework is familiar, like a team that knows what it wants to be even when key pieces are missing. Anaheim has its own list of problems, and it is not a short one. Troy Terry, Frank Vatrano, and Leo Carlsson are out, which removes proven finishing and play driving, and Mason McTavish is sitting in that uncomfortable day-to-day space, where everyone keeps refreshing updates and hoping the next game is the one he returns. The recent surge has leaned heavily on younger faces like Cutter Gauthier and rookie Beckett Senek along with a rejuvenated Chris Kreider, which is fun to watch, but a lot of that success came in comeback situations, tight scores, and overtime finishes where the Ducks were chasing the puck for long stretches. That kind of script is thrilling for fans and great for highlight reels, but it is not always the most stable blueprint over a long season. Vegas still feels like the more sustainable build. The overall goal differential, the more balanced scoring, and a blue line featuring players like Shea Theodore and Noah Hanifin suggest a structure that usually bends before it breaks. Even in this rough patch, they have not completely lost their defensive identity, and that matters when trying to predict who handles the grind of a road game better. The schedule spot adds another wrinkle, with Vegas on the second half of a back-to-back, but with Seattle seeing Akira Schmid the night before, projections lean toward Adin Hill getting the net here, which gives them a rested starter. Anaheim is expected to roll again with Lucas Dostal, who has put together a solid record with 19 wins, 13 losses, and 2 extra time results, along with a goals against mark just under 3. Good numbers, but not untouchable. Once all the noise is stripped away, the losing streak panic on one side and the "are these guys actually for real" talk on the other, the matchup still points toward the deeper, more proven group that has a stronger 5-on-5 profile over the full season and feels overdue for a response game. As our first pick for this matchup, the Vegas Golden Knights money line is our full game side pick. Scoring-wise, this matchup has the kind of surface-level shine that makes people expect chaos and a light-up scoreboard. Anaheim has been living in high-event territory, averaging just over a little more than 3 goals scored while giving up around 3.5 per game, which sounds like nightly fire wagon hockey. Vegas sits in that low 3 range on both sides of the puck with a small positive goal gap, so if you only look at raw numbers, it is easy to picture a loose, wide-open kind of night. The story underneath those averages feels different. Anaheim's recent offensive spike came inside a very specific window, that long win streak where results included tight 4-3, 4-2, and 2-1 games. In a lot of those, the Ducks were outshot, leaned on big saves from Dostal, and found key goals at big moments rather than controlling every minute. That pattern can still lead to scoring, of course, but it is built more on timing than on constant pressure. The missing pieces on the Ducks side matter a lot for any total. Terry and Vetrano bring established finishing, Leo Carlsson drives play, and with McTavish still listed in that uncertain day-to-day category, a big chunk of Anaheim's natural shooting punch is either out or not guaranteed to be fully up to speed. When those kinds of names are not available, coaches tend to tighten things up a little, lean more on structure, and ask the rest of the lineup to play a more controlled style. Vegas has its own scoring slump, but the defensive side has not fallen apart. They have held opponents to 3 or fewer in most recent games despite the losses, which hints that the core defensive habits are still there, even if the puck is not going in as often on the other side. Schmid's season numbers, with a goals against mark in the mid-2s and a pair of shutouts, reflect a system that usually protects its goaltenders when the skaters stay out of trouble. With Schmid having played the previous night, expectations point toward Hill getting the crease here, giving fresh legs in net, while Dostal has carried a heavier workload and has already seen this Vegas group once this season in a lower event contest that finished 3-2. The context around the game nudges things toward a calmer scoring pace too. Divisional matchup, playoff positioning implications, and the calendar creeping toward the Olympic break all encourage a more careful approach, with both benches aware that turning this into a pure track meet could backfire. Anaheim's coaching staff has already moved the team toward a more structured, defensive shape compared with the previous season, even if the goals against column has not fully caught up yet. Vegas under Bruce Cassidy still leans on a style built around protecting the middle of the ice first and leaving the pretty plays for when the danger areas are locked down, which often pulls games with high scoring expectations into something a bit tighter and more patient, unless special teams completely break the script. Put together, the combination of multiple key forwards missing on both sides, a rested goaltender expected in for Vegas, a netminder on the Anaheim side carrying a busy workload, and a recent history of lower event meetings between these teams all point toward a game that looks more like a measured chess match than a free skating show, where a 3-2 or 4-2 type final feels more realistic than a track-style shootout. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.